So welcome to the Recovery Position with myself, Kev, and this here is my good buddy and recovery colleague,
Warren.
Thanks for that. Right, so we'll just give you a brief overview here. So this series is just going to look into some topics of recovery, and we'll have different guests just to discuss some elements of recovery. Seeing as you're full of noise there, Warren, do you want to introduce our guest?
Certainly will, Kevin. I certainly will. See, I'm thinking he doesn't need an introduction because at this stage everybody kind of knows him. He's either been on the TV or he's been on the radio or you've read his publication or he's in some of your favourite YouTube videos. Not the one with the wee boy opening the Kinder eggs, but all the other ones. But I'll introduce him anyway. It's Mr. Gary Rutherford. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be on with you guys.
Oh, it's great to have you guys. Absolutely fantastic.
Can I say something before we start? I just saw the size of Warren's mug. How long is this podcast going to be, Warren? That thing's massive.
It's not a euphemism. It's definitely, it's just a big cup I have as well.
Right, but I mean, that's about as much script as we've offered ourselves. We basically want to open this up now to some free-flowing conversation, but it should be handy enough. We'll open, guys, just with a quick question.
Yes.
Do you want to talk to us a bit about your own experience of relapse and the effect it's had on your recovery journey?
Oh, relapse was a funny one for me because it lasted like what felt like forever. Relapse is a difficult subject to talk about in recovery because people freak out when they hear the word relapse or slip or trip or fall. And the thing is, it's a massive part of the recovery cycle, the recovery process. It's really important if it's used correctly as a learning tool. So instead of us being terrified of relapse, understanding it's really kind of important. And the point I'm making is I didn't understand it for a long time. I kept trying to get sober and clean, maybe got a day, sometimes got half a day, sometimes didn't get anything, and then relapsed back into that way of thinking. But whenever I went into treatment the second time, I managed to gain a lengthy bit of sobriety. So the treatment centre of the second one was 3 months. I probably got maybe another 2.5 outside, and then I was just relapsing. And that relapse went on for, up to 2 years. So that was my experience of relapsing. Trying to keep on top of it, trying to hide it, trying to say to myself, oh, right, start again. But it took me a while to figure out you needed to learn from the relapse. You needed to think back, well, what happened in the run up to that? Like, what were you doing? What were you thinking about? How were you feeling? And start to learn from it. And luckily for me, the last relapse was the last relapse.
So I suppose that's always going to be the case, isn't it? The last one is the last one. There's talk there, a lot of talk about learning in it though, and maybe just avoiding the fear. But no one to learn from it, I suppose, is the big thing, isn't it?
Oh, definitely. And like, so you kind of need to be taught that as well, because I think I think whenever you're trying to sort yourself out, if you guys can relate to this, how many times have you tried to sort yourself out and failed and it didn't work? And you feel like a failure and you feel rubbish and you feel like you're incapable of doing it. And that's a negative feeling and a negative emotion. And what drives relapse and use is negative feelings and negative emotions. So having the understanding that learning about it and learning from it is an important tool then. It stands you in good stead then for going forward.
I think some people as well think that the relapse is just a full stop point as well. And once you relapse, that's you done and it's, what's a point like. But I think the thing about it is that you kept going until it stuck for you like. And as you say as well too, as long as you're not making the same mistakes, as long as you're learning from it, then it can definitely be beneficial in the long run.
It's almost like, so how do you gauge success in your recovery, right? If we gauge success in recovery by no relapse or lapse, then mine would have been a failure because I had an extended period of lapsing and relapsing. So it's how we determine what's successful in this thing. Are you managing to change your relationship with drugs and alcohol? Yes. And are you seeing positive impacts in your life and your families and your relationship as a better measure than just focusing if somebody's had a relapse or not?
It's interesting. I mean, it's definitely a tricky topic. I was just wondering, me and Warren sort of spoke at length before starting this about what what topics we would include in the series. And when we spoke about relapse, we thought it might be a good idea to include complacency in the topic. I think the main reason for that is we both have our own experiences of being complacent in a sense. Luckily, we have ARC, which allows us to focus solely on recovery nearly 24/7. But we've seen, I mean, maybe participants within ARC and even our own experiences, that when you become complacent, it's very easy for those darker thoughts to sort of creep in. Would you feel the same, that complacency is a big issue that can lead to relapse?
Definitely. Addiction is a sneaky wee SH1T, as they say, because what happens is you'll get a period of sobriety, you'll get your honeymoon period, and you're sober and you're doing all these things. And then the honeymoon period kind of slows down and life is still life. And then the thought comes into your head and says, do you know what? It wasn't really that bad. You know, like you weren't homeless, or this didn't happen. So, you know, you've dealt with it now. So, you know, maybe you can do this and you do that. And when you take your eye off the ball, that's when the crap starts to happen. Because if you haven't addressed any of the background stuff, it's still there. So the reason that you were using it in the first place, if it's not starting to be dealt with, they'll still be there. And that's where complacency comes from. They talk about, see, the structure and the routine that I hammer on about all the time, structure, discipline, and routine. They are there to stop you becoming complacent. Because if you focus on that, you have that as your backup until you can deal with all that other stuff. But I see it all the time. I see it all the time. Where I convince myself, like, things weren't that bad. Like, I was drinking at 10:30. At least I wasn't drinking at 9:30. So it wasn't that bad. And that's what happens. You do this to yourself.
I think I can relate that. My periods of sobriety was, you know, I would think, right, I've been off everything a day. That's me. I beat it. I'm all right to go back to do it again now. You know, some people go months without that and they think, right, I haven't had a drink in a month, 6 months. I'll be grand to do it again now. I'm no longer an addict. I'm no longer an alcoholic. I think an important thing to remember is that's always still going to be there. You know, it never really goes away. Like, if you can't drink, then you just can't drink. It's just that simple. That's how I would view it anyway. Like, I know I hope to be abstinent for the rest of my life. I can't see it ever stopping, but I mean, ARC is the big thing. It helps me. Like, it's the thing that stops my complacency. It's always there to remind me what we're doing and why we're doing it. Like,
and I don't know about you guys, right? Like, because you're not relatively new in all this. I mean, you're both sober a decent chunk of time, right? But I was going to say something really Yoda-esque there, and it just left me. So I was going to talk about, and I'll come back now. What I was going to say. It's a good start.
Well, it must have been profound, all right, yes.
Sorry, I put you off one or two.
It was so profound, it stumped me. So it definitely did. So like the abstinence thing, I think you mentioned about the abstinence thing. And this is a really funny kind of, I firmly believe, right? So if you're the sort of person that was like me that struggled with their relationship with a substance, then abstinence has to be your way forward, because I know that I am not prepared to take the risk of going back to how things were before. Now, other people will differ. I'm not into the labeling of things. I don't think once you're, let's say these were addict, alcoholic, all these words, right? I don't think you're necessarily that for the rest of your life, because your identity is not that. That is something that you're dealing with. And that, in there lies my issue of identity. So if you identify yourself as an alcoholic all the time, then that's what you are. But I like to think about a person in recovery from a dysfunctional relationship that they've created with either substances, drugs or alcohol. And that looks a little bit different, but I do think that abstinence has to be the way forward. Purely because if your heads are tailing it, it's not worth it.
I think for me, if I'm doing one, I'm doing 100 things. Like, I think that's why I have to stop doing everything. It was, using it the weekend and then taking stuff they bring me around during the week, and then it was just this vicious cycle of going on and on and on. But if I cut out the whole lot, then I think that was the only way I could go forward on it. Any times I tried to get sober before, it was never successful, simply because I was still doing something in that mix. So I think that's where the abstinence base works for me more than anything else.
I'd have to 100% agree there too. You remember I went off alcohol for must have been about 6 months one time and thought, oh, look at me, aren't I doing wonderful? Of course, I'd been smoking weed quite heavily that whole time, so I was never really sober. And there's such a difference, and I noticed that as soon as I went and down the abstinence route, just how clear your head becomes, and you become so aware of the harm that either or was doing. There's no one better than the other, because I think we can all agree the three people here at the moment probably pushed it just that wee bit too far on anything they were involved in.
Yeah, I would probably have some sort of training montage of stupidity just for the last 10 years of my life. Like,
if you could piece them together, like just so horrendous. But Kevin, you're right. Like, and abstinence freaks the crap out of people. Like, even the word is the word, but it even sounds really medieval, right? Yeah, abstinence. But my point is, it shouldn't freak people out. Like, why does the fact of not identifying yourself as a non-drinker or drug user, why is that such a problem? This is what I find. Why is that such a problem in society today? For somebody to choose to not drink or take drugs, it doesn't affect your ability to connect, communicate, relate. And I said it before, it doesn't make you less boring unless you're boring. And then that's just unfortunate for you. But it's just, we live in a society where it's really challenging. It really is hard to say, look, I don't drink or I don't use drugs. Because people are like, why not? I'm like, do you know what? Because I like my life. I like what I have, really. And I want to keep it that way. And we have a lot of work to do about the culture and our society and the norms and what we expect of each other.
I suppose that's a nice wee segue. You saved me and Warren the job of creating one at the moment.
I want to hear the segue.
Oh, you just hit us with a segue. So you're always talking about the change of conversation, yes. And now at the minute you've started the No Shame campaign, which is definitely starting to kick off quite massively from what I can see, and some lovely work being done. Do you want to talk a wee bit about that now while we have you? Just give a wee brief overview of what's going down.
So the focus behind, the No Shame campaign was birthed out of something that we just do as an organisation and me as a person and my wife Sarah, because one of the biggest barriers to recovery or to seeking help is guilt and shame. And sometimes we wrap it up, and I said this in the podcast before, like, as pride. It's not pride, it's just because we're flipping embarrassed because of where we are, let's be fair. And if we can now start allowing people the space to be able to talk about it, to be able to be open, for family members to be able to say, look, I have this stuff going on in my family and it's really taking its toll. If we can break the shame and the stigma around addiction, substance use and dependency, then we make it easier for people to access help. And if we make it easier for people to access help, then we help reduce the problem. Now, it's a massive problem. We have a lot of work to do. But I mean, if we can start by having these conversations, then that's really the main thing. And you were both on the ARC social that was on there recently, and we had Alison Armstrong from Assert, and she just nailed it. And she just says we need to have grown-up conversations. So we just need to have open, honest, frank conversation about something that's looking at us right in the face every time we go down the town, along the quay, anywhere.
Agreed. I think it's good to have a celebrity running that campaign as well, Gaz. And I think at the minute we can definitely look at you. Maybe you don't see yourself that way, as a bit of a celebrity around the town. I know I actually joined you on your venture up to the Foil Foot and Ankle Clinic, and I had an appointment shortly after where I spoke with Steph, who said, I can't believe we had Gaz on here. It was like having a celebrity on here. Are you getting used to that yet?
Well, the springs in the future are coming back. The big thing for me, see, and kind of what happened whenever I set ARC up, it was just me. It was a Facebook page. It was me taking my personal stuff and it was kind of me just putting my personal life out there for people to connect and relate to it. The problem with that moving forward is because that's now what people see as ARC, as me, and it's not. And you guys know this because there's a team of 10 people behind all this. Hence things like the No Shame campaign stuff that we're doing now. There's not a lot of me in that stuff because it's about other people that are connected to the organization doing things. And that's because, and this is a thing, and you need to learn, like a little bit of humility goes a long way. You need to kind of understand that, you know, this thing doesn't lie entirely on my shoulders. It can't or it won't succeed. It won't continue to help as many people if it's just me. I need to open it up. So that's where I'm at with it. It just happened to be me. But what I'm actively doing, and you guys are going to get over the next months and months and months, people are going to be seeing more of you guys, and it's really, really good because ARC is about the community, not the person. And I think that's really important. So I think we're working really hard on trying to get that around. And it's a bit hard not to notice a 6'2" bald guy running about the quay with a weighted vest on. Like, it's hard not to see that and think, what is he doing? But hey, we'll take that as it comes.
It doesn't hurt too. You're ridiculously good looking as well too, I suppose, and hopefully I translate the statue that they're going to put on the Guildhall Square as well. Like.
Hey, as long as they need to have a hat on it. If there's a hat on it and a pair of shorts for flying, that's all I ask. But no, as I said to you before, community is really important. Growing ARC is really important, and we need people. And ARC has been blessed to have had excellent people through the program, excellent people helping on the program, all with a real heart and desire. They want to help people, and that's really important to me. I'm really cautious about people who come in to work for us because, you know, I work really hard on creating the culture that we have, and I just want the best for people. I always did. This is why we set it up in the first place, guys, and use your testament to that. We just want people to do well. They start rebuilding bits of their life and they start feeling positive again. And that's what we're doing. So the people is important.
And I think that's exactly what it does as well too. It's such a special wee place to be in, with such a lovely organisation to be involved in as well too. And it's all the help there as well. Everybody mucking on and taking their time. They move you on. Like, a lot of people try to paddle their own canoes and do it all themselves, and I think that's where they feel like it's important to have a good, solid, strong team around you, people that care, and that's exactly what ARC has.
And that touches back on what you were talking about, complacency. We're here. The support is here. Support is always here. You know, for people to use it, for the community to use it. If you do start to get those rumblings or those inklings, the support doesn't go away. You have to use it.
We've definitely seen that in action as well. Yes, I mean there's that. We have an accountability group set up that you've set up yourself, and I mean I remember being in an induction a couple of times with a new group coming through, and saying, after talking about a segment, and this is where the magic happens, and then somebody starts talking about another segment, and I'm thinking, hold on a second, that's where the magic happens. Oh no, and then somebody talks about another bit, and you're like, oh, that's where the magic happens as well. Hold on a second. But it's just, I mean, it takes a lot, but there's a lot of magic involved in it. And you're right, people need to put the work on. They need to reach out for it, but it's definitely there when they do.
And I think having a recovery community is really important. And I think for so long, there's been recovery communities out here for so long, right? They've just been meeting in a room and not talking about it. But I think, why not open that up? Like, why have to hide behind something to have a conversation about something you're struggling with? And what I like is the fact that it was just created of a sober, active community. So we're not one about calling ourselves a recovery community. We're a sober, active. We're literally people who are sober and active. And then whatever benefits come out the back of that, happy days. If that's getting your family back, happy days. If that's getting your job, happy days. Going back to school, happy days. If that's what being part of a sober, active community gets you, hey, we're going to get massive.
It is.
I think that's the important word. There's a community as well too. Like it is exactly just that. That's everybody mucking on together. People, strangers, and they quickly become best friends and keep in contact with each other. They're kind of like me and Kev.
We're stuck with each other now, but happy enough with it.
It's hilarious watching you guys, and I know you felt some kind of praise. This is your first podcast, and it's going really well. You're doing really well. That's the encouragement piece, right? But like, I enjoy watching the relationships form with people and starting to get on and having a bit of fun and a bit of banter And like, you guys are as different as chalk and cheese, but together it's phenomenal. It's so good to see. Warren, I mean, Kevin's just, you're like, and I've told you this before, your approach and your stoicness, so you're like a Yoda. And Warren, and I said this to you before, if there was ever a movie quote or a movie reference that could fix somebody with an addiction or that are struggling with relapse, you have it. And there, you have this like database of knowledge. I think on one occasion, you helped somebody who was really struggling by using a John Wick quote. Is that right?
That's true, yeah. It's true.
That's a talent, Warren. To be able to impact somebody's life using a John Wick quote. That's something special, and that's why you're here.
I appreciate that, guys.
And now everybody will realise that we just brought you on, guys. They big us up on our first episode. But really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
I set up a podcast GoFundMe link, so it's okay. You're paying it there. No, but the actual thought behind the podcast, guys, was great because it was something that came from you guys. It was something that wasn't pushed by Arc or pushed by me, and I think that's what makes it special, because when it's real people, real recovery, real conversations, real people, then it really works. And people, I said really and real a lot there. It works and people connect it really well. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make everything accessible. We're trying to make talking about this thing accessible. And you're two young, handsome guys from the town. I like, that's accessible. We talk about it. So you do. And that's what's good. So this isn't Arc deciding that let's do a podcast and have you guys, this is your baby, and it's really a really good thing to do.
To be fair, Kev brought it up to me, and I'm just in a position where I just say aye to things and then worry about them later. So he says it to me, and I kind of just says aye, and then didn't assume it was going to become a thing. And then obviously it became a thing, and it was too late to back out of it. But here we are.
It's funny, Warren, because I think before you'd have been the no guy, like you'd have been like,
100%.
So that change in you from when did you start? Was it over a year?
That would have been July last year was the first kind of.
Like for you to be sitting here now on a podcast, co-producing and kind of whatever, a podcast, or that's mental. So it is. For Kev to be, what year are you now at uni, Kev?
I'm on just finishing off my first year.
Class.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I mean. Real people just doing real stuff. Like, it's so encouraging.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say whenever we get our own Netflix show as well. You're right, like, if you're as proud as now, the 12 season run next,
I hope you have an agent.
Oh, have you not asked Gaz yet, Warren?
I was building up that, Kev.
What's your, I suppose you guys now have been around the block, you've been around Arc, you've seen groups come in, like in terms of relapse, for example, like you are seeing it, what's your take on it? Where do you sit with it all?
Personally, I wouldn't. I've been lucky enough to get to this point without relapsing. Now, that's a strange thing, because if I really look back at it, when I decided to go on to treatment, I'd probably been relapsing, because I think I wanted off it for a good solid year before that. So although I hadn't talked about going under recovery, I could almost say that year was just full of relapses. From what I can see through ARC and the participants that have experienced it, there's a lot of learning on it if they use it that way. As long as people don't see it as an excuse to just have a drink or to use again, there's definitely, it can be a seriously beneficial experience. That's my personal opinion on what I see it as.
And that's the difference. Let's not brush it under the carpet. It does happen. Unfortunately, there's people out there, and they're called like spontaneous sobriety people, right? Who just go and get sober, and you kind of want to go and hug one and hope it rubs off, but that's not the reality for everybody. And I used to remember at the very start of this, speaking to people who were like, I stopped and then that was it, never went back on again. And like, part of me was like, that's really great for you, because I'm struggling over here. And the reality is it does happen. But back to what you were saying about learning. Learning is super important. Also not beating yourself up, right? Because you'll give yourself such a hard time when it happens, because all those feelings of disappointment will come and say you got 2 months and it was a good 2 months, and then you just, whatever happened in your head and it happened, you'll probably spend the next month giving yourself a hard time. You can't get that time back. You just acknowledge the thing and acknowledge that it happened, park it, and a bit of self-acceptance and a bit of self-love, get over it. And this was the problem. When you wallow on it, Kevin, you don't move forward. And that's the challenge. And people just tend to do that. And I think what we've created in ARC is the fact that if it does happen, and it does happen, let's not just think you join ARC and everything's all rosy in the garden. Life is life. The point is we approach relapse quite compassionately and quite empathetically, in the fact that we will acknowledge it happened, but we'll help you move past it pretty quickly and get you connected back into the community. You don't need to be chastised or told off, or that's not helpful.
No, I think it's just actively encouraging the person they get back on the horse as such. Like, it does happen, and there's sometimes it's just a silly wee slip. Like, the important thing is you just do not let it stop you. You just keep going, start again afresh. Like,
you really do. You really have to, because like time is such, and I'm going to go philosophical now. Like, I am 40. I know you're shocked, right? You're like, what, 40? I'm 40, right? And, you know, I got sober at 30. That's a long time with a lot of wasted time that I can't get back. And this is why it's so important to, you know, if you have an opportunity to change your life now, grab it by the testicles and do it now, because you can't get the time back. I can't get those years back. And relapse is the same. It's difficult enough when it happens, but you can't get the wallowing time back either. Like, you just can't.
I completely agree here, Gary. I know, like, I got sober last year, just as I got under my 40s as well too, and I think I've been making silly decisions since I've been 16, put it that way. Like, and it does feel like a big massive stretch of time that I've wasted that I'm never going to get back. But I think the way I put it in my head is the important thing is I have the rest of my life to make up for that and keep going on and doing things now that I left by the wayside before. Like,
you have your whole life in front of you.
We've covered that well, I think, and obviously it's great to have you guys on the chat about it, because we know we've had an extensive experience of it, and we hope that through the series we have people with experience on each topic that we're talking about. But just now to get down to the important side of things, we have 3 quick fire questions coming your way. This is some serious stuff, so get your thinking cap on, guys. I'm going to allow Warren to come in with the first one.
Really?
So hard hitting these ones, Gary, so prepare yourself. So obviously you were my first trainer at ARC, and you knew that the thing that I struggled with most in the classes was probably the whole class. But my question to you is, at this stage you've probably done every exercise that's ever been invented at least twice. There has to be one on there that you don't like. What would that be?
I feel like I'm going to give it away now, and it's going to come back and haunt me. I hate lunges. I'll give you 2: lunges and push-ups, because I have a dodgy shoulder. So they're the 2 that you'll probably see me either pretending, or if it was a Zoom session, I would be down below the camera. That's it.
We've all done that. We've all been there. Yes, number 2. What do you like to do to unwind?
Sleep.
Nice.
Nice. You know what? Stand-up comedy is a big thing. Like, we'll just kind of try and put on like an hour or 2 of stand-up sometimes over the weekend. Laughter, you know, so, and I can really engage in it. I am, my head's a mile a minute. I am always on the go. So I'm really good at giving advice, and I'm really crap at taking it. So for me, I need to actually seek out that time, but I love a bit of stand-up comedy. And a bit of John Wick for you, Warren.
Yes. So we'll go with question number 3, and this is like a big ARC staple at this stage of the game. Simply put, what is your favourite biscuit?
What's my favourite biscuit? A Maryland cookie.
She's a good biscuit.
Hold on, I feel offended. I was under the impression that the Hobnob was the official ARC biscuit, but no, okay, that's fine.
Guys, for those that don't know, there's been a long few conversations about Kevin's fascination with hobnobs, which has now grown into an organisational wide issue that we're going to have a special support group for the hobnobbers within ARC. I will not be in that because I'm a Maryland cookie kind of a guy, so I'll just be on the outside judging. But hey, that's my favourite. That there and a toffee pop. I'm old school. I'm back to the 80s.
I will allow you a toffee pop now.
I will also allow the toffee pop. Yes. Just before we go, I mean, those were the 3 quick fire questions. Obviously, as you can tell, there's nothing too serious involved there. What we would like to know, just a bit more heartfelt, is what's been the biggest benefit of recovery for you? Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own recovery, just recovery itself. What's been the biggest benefit for you?
For me, self-worth. That was a good question there. Right, so self-worth, right? Because for years and years, so this goes into the whole shame and guilt thing. So we all have pasts. I have a past, and it doesn't usually come up that often because of the platform that I'm on. Like, I struggled for 15 years. I've done stuff that I haven't been proud of. People have been hurt along the way. Relationships have been broken along the way. So for me, entering recovery, I felt awful. I felt worthless. I felt broken and sad and unlovable and unwantable because I felt like, who's going to want a 30-year-old divorced, recovering addict, whatever they wanted to call him, with rubbish tattoos at that time? Who wants that? But recovery taught me that you're not that. You're not your past. You're not all the stuff that has happened. They might fashion you, mold you, but you're not that. So it's taught me to actually be okay with me and to be confident with me. And if you don't like it, then I'm okay with that because I'm all right with myself now, but it took a while to get there. And that's what recovery's taught me. And it's funny because if I had had that insight as the 12, 13-year-old boy that was bullied at school, I don't know, would we even be having this conversation or would this organization even be here? Because that's just how it was.
Funny how the world works out.
Great questions that deserve great answers, and that was a great answer, Gary. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being so warm and welcoming hosts. Thank you for getting dressed up. For those that are listening, they didn't get haircuts, but they did do their hair, and they are wearing ARC memorabilia, which you can purchase from our website. Shameless plug. No shame. Hashtag no shame.
Yes, really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming on as our first guest. And thanks, Warren, for being a wonderful, wonderful co-host. Love you, buddy.
No, thank you, Kevin, and I love you too.
I love you.
We also love Gary.
We do.
Well, Gary, thank you very much. It was an absolute pleasure chatting with you.
And good luck with the rest of these conversations. I'm sure they're all going to be epic.
Oh, that leads us on to who we have on next month. You want to tell him, Kev?
Well, next month we hope to have Russell Brand on discussing his struggles with addiction. Quick disclaimer, we may not have Russell Brand on next month's episode.
Yeah. And if we don't have him, it's probably not going to be Daft Punk either, but so we'll see how it goes.
Still looking for them more.
It's becoming a daily occurrence now, Gary.
That's us then, folks. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you on the flip side.
All the best, guys. Thank you.
No, but love you, brother. Good luck.